Hi, I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and welcome to my LinkedIn Live, where I share processes and procedures on how to achieve success in the federal market. Today's topic is a really interesting one to me because I get asked this question a lot, including yesterday afternoon at another event I talked at. How do I choose an agency to focus on? There's so many agencies. If I choose the wrong one, do I miss out on opportunities over there? And so that's a concern people have. And I'm going to talk about that today. I'm going to talk about why you should choose just one agency and how do you choose one agency. And maybe I'll touch on a little bit of that fear of missing out of all the agencies you don't choose because there are hundreds of them. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Just give you a little background on me if you don't know who I am. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. And that process, when followed, will lead to success. And so today we're going to talk about some of the process related to business development. Good morning to the folks who are saying hi. Hi back. If you're on here and on chat, it'd be great if you could throw in your company name and your core competency. And remember, core competency is like 1 to 3 words that describe what you do. It's funny. It looks like Josh, that's you, right, Joshua, at HTA? Says all things cybersecurity. If I get rid of all things, I go cybersecurity. If I ever wonder about cybersecurity, I'm going to go back to him because HTA Technologies is all things cyber. So go ahead and put that in the chat, and we're going to get started on today's topic. So no slides. I want to just talk right to you about how I choose the agencies, the primary agency to focus on. And so I'm going to cover pretty quickly what a primary agency is, what that means related to business development, and then why it's important. I'll cover give you an understanding of agencies, right? All of us are in the federal space at one level or another, very experienced down to very new, but we all have heard the term agency. But what does that mean? How are they grouped? So I'm going to cover that. And then I'm going to give you a criteria to consider when you're choosing a primary agency. So the first thing about a primary agency, and what I mean by it, is the 80-20 rule, the Pareto's law, right? That talks about 80% of your success can come from 20% of your effort. And in this case, 80% of your revenue or your success can come from just this one agency. And so in this case, when you look at business development is about understanding an agency, getting in there and understanding their mission, their goals and objectives, what they're trying to accomplish in the future, new stuff they're trying to achieve, and what challenges they have that they're trying to overcome with your support. And so business development is a big part of that effort on research. It's also about developing relationships. You're going to meet lots of people. You're going to meet small business specialists and other focuses of receptivity, meaning they're willing to chat with you and help you navigate their agency. You're going to meet focuses of dissatisfaction. These are people who are in the program office, and they'll talk about this dissatisfaction they have. Remember, dissatisfaction could either be I have a problem I'm dissatisfied with, or I want something new and I don't have it yet, so I'm dissatisfied, and you are the answer to their dissatisfaction. And then the last group of people are focuses of power. These are the contracting officers who sign the contract. So business development, it's about understanding the agency. It's about building relationships, and it's about identifying opportunities. If you try to go after many agencies, you can't really get that understanding in any kind of serious level. I'll give you an example of just a simple joke. A cousin of mine sat in my family for dinner, and she used to do this all the time. It wasn't a one-time occurrence. And in my family, we had my parents had 10 kids, and so there was routinely 12 of us around the table. And imagine the size of the table, right? And she would sit in the middle. Bad decision already, but she would be engaged with the conversation going on at this end. And somebody was telling a joke and it was funny. She's following it. It's going great. And boom, this side of the table starts laughing. And so she turns over there to see what was so funny. And it's so funny. It's engaging. She's smiling because they're smiling and laughing, but she's missed the punchline. She doesn't know what's going on. And then boom, the people who had, my siblings who were telling a joke over here told the punchline, which she missed. Well, in business development, it could be that same thing. If you're looking at the Army and you're looking at the Navy, something is going on over here that you're paying attention to, but you get distracted and come over here for a second. You might miss something that you had been building towards. Now imagine that it's Army, Navy, FEMA, Department of Education, and HUD. If you're trying to chase all these agencies, how much can you really understand one agency. And so that goes into why is picking a primary agency important. So when you think about choosing a primary agency, you're going to be able to put your effort into them. And so the first thing that choosing a primary agency allows you to do is to have depth of understanding of that agency. You're focused, because you're focused on one agency, let's say Navy, you're able to go deeper and deeper into the Navy to understand what they do, how they do it, how they spend, how their command structure is, right? I did a couple of videos this week, LinkedIn Lives, that talked about how do you sell into the Navy or Army or Air Force? Well, first thing you do is understand their command structure, which then allows you to understand the program offices, et cetera, that are downrange, if you will, downstream in the Navy, and begin to find the places where you need to be. Well, if you're trying to do that level of effort, it's a large lift. And it's not overly complicated when you have one agency, because you feel like you're continuing to become more and more of an expert at the Navy. But if you tried to do this on multiple agencies, it would be impossible, right? It's one of the things you can see is if you look at $1 billion prime contractor, almost every one of their salespeople, their business developers and capture, are focused on one agency, right? I know, like in SAIC, I used an example yesterday. They've got multiple business developers and multiple capture managers focused just on the Air Force, right? They don't look to these people and say, hey, I also want you covering Department of Education. I also want you over here. And so this goes to a second reason that I think it's really important to understand a primary agency's value is that it enables rabbit hole navigation. And what I mean by this is I always say, allow yourself during business development to go down a rabbit hole. Going down a rabbit hole means you're going down this tunnel and then you turn this way and you discover something new and then you turn this way. And you don't really have a plan when you go down a rabbit hole. You're just seeing what's around the next corner. Well, when you're doing business development to understand an agency, you actually want to allow yourself to do that so that you read one document and it feeds you off, or it leads you off to another one that leads you maybe to a person that you could have a meeting with and understand more. And so that rabbit hole of navigation is a really valuable exercise. And so focusing allows you to do that. You can get referrals easier because everyone in the Navy knows each other. Now, that's a broad statement, but what I really mean is pretty much nobody in the Navy knows anybody at HUD. Nobody at HUD really knows anybody at Department of Energy, right? There might be a couple of one-off relationships, but in the Navy, if you're going focused, you can piggyback from one office that is doing cybersecurity to another one that they go, you know what, these guys are also doing cybersecurity. You should talk with them. You know what, these people are doing the risk management framework stuff. You should go there. These people are doing airfield paving or whatever, right? You can go talk to them. In the Navy, if you're going deep into a Navy and you have a primary agency, the chances of every person you meet being able to introduce you to another person in the Navy is much higher than a person in the Navy being able to introduce you to somebody in the Army, somebody in HUD, et cetera. My hand just kept going off screen everywhere, right? The last thing I want to point out is that going along that idea of everyone knows everyone is that if you focus on a primary agency, when you start looking for teaming partners, in particular for us small businesses who are trying to build a book of business as a subcontractor, well, it's very easy to go into the Navy, be doing our homework and research, and then go over to FPDS and find all the winners, all the companies that have won prime contracts, and begin to build our list of prime contractors and say, they're the ones I'm going to go out to talk to see if there might be some synergy between my company and their company, what we offer, what they offer, and whether we might be a good fit. Well, when you do it in a single agency, you can identify hundreds of potential teaming partners. Imagine trying to do that, though, where you're talking about the Navy and you're talking about DHS and you're over here at Missile Defense Agency or something. Every time you switch conversations or switch agency discussion points with somebody, your whole mind has to reset around, oh, I'm talking about the Army now. They're a whole different mission set. But if you stick in a primary agency, it could be FEMA, it could be the Department of Veterans Affairs, it doesn't matter. When you talk to the next person, everything you've been discussing or learning before about Veterans Affairs is relevant to this next conversation you have with a teaming partner. So it's a great way to keep yourself focused and driving in. I'm going to talk about this in a second, but one of the values of focusing on an agency is it's actually the fastest path to making money. So when I think of a small business starting up, I always think of it trying to hit two stages, two big stages. I have a lot of little stages, but two big stages, the $10 million mark and the $100 million mark. And what these mean, and they're two different things, right? Some people have a $10 million kind of limit in their mindset saying, I don't want a company bigger than that. I want it to just be a good company and I can grow. And somebody else might go, I want a $100 million company because I'm really on my path to a $1 billion company or whatever, or they want to be bought, right? Somebody who wants to have a $10 million company is not looking to be acquired. They're looking to have a long sustaining business. Somebody who's trying to build a $100 million company is probably looking to be acquired or build themselves to or to a $1 billion company. And when you focus on an agency, it's actually faster to get to those goals because of all the activity or the experience and the past past performances you have can lead to other people within that agency going, oh yeah, no, I know you're working with Admiral so-and-so. He sings your praise. Come on over here. They don't really care what Colonel so-and-so says over in the Army or somebody at HUD as much as they do within their own agency. I heard a line once in the Coast Guard, if you're not a Coastie, we don't want to work with you. And of course, they'll work with anybody. But what they were saying was they preferred working with people who were Coasties or who have worked in the Coast Guard before because they understand their language, they understand their mission. And so it's, as you go forward, focus on a single agency gives you that depth and the depth of understanding and depth of relationships. All right, so the next thing, as we go down into, how do I begin to choose? This is the last part of what I want to talk about today is really driving into giving you some guidance on how I would choose a primary agency if I had to choose it again right now. And I help customers do this all the time. And by the way, I help customers do this who are making $1 million or less and 40 million and above, right? It's the same thing. What agencies are you targeting? And so we'll come down to the criteria of how do you choose that and why it's important. But I want you to think about how agencies are out there. There's hundreds of them. There's so many agencies in the federal government that there's not an accurate count within the government. So Congress is always demanding an accurate count, and the executive branch is like, 100, 200, 300. And so they can name a whole bunch of them, but there's a lot of them that are either no longer existing because they've been absorbed or they popped up and no one tracked on them much. But there's a couple of different ways I group them just for high level thinking. The first is when you're thinking about picking a primary agency, you might think of it in the IC or intelligence community, defense community or Department of Defense agencies like Army, Navy, Air Force, or civilian agencies like DHS, Department of Veterans Affairs, HUD. So that's one way to group agencies. Am I going to go after IC agencies, DoD agencies, or civilian agencies? And when I look at that, I start there and go, well, let me pick one, right? And the next way you might consider it is by the type of work that you do or that's being done. So 3 examples are construction-related agencies. So a great example is the United States Corps of Engineers, right? That's a construction-focused agency. And there are a couple of others that have a higher level of construction, like maybe NPS, National Park Service, and some others that you can look in and go, these are the top 3 agencies that do construction, the most construction in the government. Which ones do I want to work with? So construction. The second one might be healthcare. So if you're in the healthcare world, you're thinking that that's the space you want to be in, you could be looking at Veterans Affairs, health, VHA, Veteran Health Administration. You could look at NIH, which has a lot of medical facilities. You could look at DoD, the DoD Health Administration. DoDs have hospitals everywhere there's a base. And so healthcare, you could focus on that and begin to understand which agencies have the most work being performed in the healthcare side. And the last example on this is aircraft. So I use that. If I think about I'm in the aircraft space, whether it's parts, whether it's working on it. I talked to somebody yesterday who breaks down aircraft, and I can't wait to learn more about that. But if you're in the aircraft world, well, obviously the Air Force is probably a good one. Clearly the Navy and the Army have a lot of the aircraft, but are there other agencies within especially like on the civilian side, that have a good set of airplanes you might be able to support, whether it's in product and supplies, maintenance? I'm assuming this is not Boeing on today's call, so selling aircraft, but you can see the idea, right? Construction, healthcare, aircraft, big chunks of industry type groupings. And then the last one I look at are, and this is a criteria I use when I'm choosing primary agencies, are CFO agencies or non-CFO agencies. And so the CFO agencies are Chief Financial Office Act or something. But basically, there's these 24 agencies that fall under the CFO Act that I describe it loosely. I don't want anybody to give me tough comments, but I describe it loosely as saying the CFO companies or agencies are more mature because they are held to a stricter set of guidance or compliance, excuse me. And so these CFO agencies, you can find it online. Just look for CFO agencies. I'll also try to put a link into the comments after this LinkedIn Live. But CFO agencies, one of the reasons I like them is because the highest budgeted agencies are in there. So there's only 24 of them. And I told you there's hundreds of agencies out there. And so figuring out which ones to start with, well, you might as well start with the CFO agencies. They've got a lot more regulation and compliance around them. And perhaps that means they have a lot more tools. An example of a tool is an OSDBU Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. That office is focused on engaging industry, engaging small businesses into supporting the agency's mission. And so that's that last group. So when you think of those categories, think about those three that I just mentioned. So let's talk about criteria. So I get down to specific criteria now when I'm looking for an agency to choose. And remember, part of the reason we don't choose just one agency is because we have fear of missing out, right? FOMO. And fear of missing out means we feel like if I only focus on the Navy, I'm going to miss out on Army opportunities. One other way you can look at this, though, is opportunity cost. If I divide my time among the Navy and the Army, then the opportunity cost is that I'm losing perhaps 50% of the success and the progress I might get in the Navy because I'm splitting my energy and the time. And I also might not be able to go as deep on either one of them. And if you have more than two agencies you're looking at, then per person, by the way, not per company necessarily, but per dedicated business developer or capture person. If they can't be allowed to just focus on one agency, they begin to dilute their activities and goes in. So how do I choose my primary agencies? Well, here's criteria for you to consider. The first thing I want you to think about is, do you have federal experience at all? Do you have federal experience as a prime contractor? Do you have federal experience as a subcontractor? Or do you have experience on any agency as a W-2, right? Just think about where do you have experience, what experience you have. If you have no experience, then don't worry about this when you move to the next one. But if you have experience in some of these, then that gives you an idea of an agency where you might start with. Another thing to look at, similar type thing, is have you served in any agency? So it was a natural thing for me to work with the Department of Defense because I served in the Army back in the 90s. But I understand the Army from a high level, right? That's my world. Compared to HHS or HUD, that's not my world. I could work them, I could support them, but I wouldn't be able to say, oh, I've got ties. The same way I said before, are you a Coastie? Have you served in the Coast Guard? And so if you've served in an agency, I would consider that agency and go, could I really pursue that? And that leads to a very important thing for you to consider now with the IC, DOD, or civilian agencies is, do you have any clearances? Whether it's a personal clearance, like I have a top secret clearance, or do you have a facility clearance? My company has a facility clearance, a secret or top secret clearance. And here's my thing about those three groups of agencies, IC, DOD, or civilian. If you're not in the IC world, forget about it, right? Go into it later when you're doing $5 or $10 million. But so many of us are drawn to the IC community because they pay high rates. It's once you're in, and you make high rates. Well, that's great. And once I win a lottery ticket, I'm a millionaire. But it's when you're building a business, they are the hardest customer group to break into and to grow, right? It's a great place, but it's the hardest one to get into. DOD's, same kind of thing. If you don't have an active clearance, or if you don't have an active facility clearance, then it's going to be additional activity that you have to do to try to get into an Army contract or get into any DOD agency. And remember, at this point, what I'm talking about is primary agency where you're especially trying to maybe go after prime contracts. But if you look at the civilian side, tons of civilian agencies, and you basically do not need any kind of sophisticated clearance. They might call it tough, but the reality is getting a clearance in the even in the White House sometimes, working for the executive office of the president, working for the Department of Veterans Affairs or HUD, their security clearance level and requirements are very, very low. And so when you look at DOD, though, you might have to have a security clearance of secret just to start. That's the ante into the game. But generally, you're probably going towards having a top secret. So if you don't have a clearance level or a facility clearance level, and that's for your company is what an FCL is. If you don't have those, then focus on the civilian agencies to get started, right? To grow your first $5 million, to grow into a new agency. Next thing I look at is agency alignment. Do you have any alignment with the mission of an agency? So an example is, let's say VA, sticking with the Veterans Affairs, Department of Veterans Affairs. Do you have an alignment with their mission? Their mission is to support the veterans who have served this country, who have come out of the military, and now are now in civilian life. And do you feel this tie either as a mission alignment because what you do aligns directly with them? An example is healthcare, right? So you're aligning to their mission of providing healthcare. They also do veterans benefits. Just as an example, vocational training or educational training, things like that. Do you align in any kind of world there? Well, maybe you could support the Veterans Business Administration. So that's mission alignment. What you do aligns to what their mission is. Or do you have mission interest? And so just sticking with the VA again, I don't have necessarily an alignment with the VA, but I feel very passionately about enabling the VA to provide the best quality healthcare to veterans who are coming out. Veterans like to be treated in hospitals where other veterans are at. So my ability to support veteran hospitals, I feel really passionate about that compared to, I don't overly care about HUD's mission of supporting housing. Not that I don't, right? But so this agency looks like it's a good fit for me because my passion will help me understand their mission more, will help me have conversations more as I meet people who are similarly passionate about the VA's mission. And so the last tip I have for you on criteria here is choose agencies that are hitting their small business goals. And this flies in the face of anything you would hear from a lot of other people or what you might instinctively do. I see this all the time. People say, oh, that agency is not hitting its HubZone goal. I'm going to go there because they want to hit their HubZone goal. They need to hit their HubZone goal. It's law that they hit their HubZone goal. That agency could care less about hitting their HubZone goal. If the agency has a goal of 3% to be set aside to HubZone and they're not hitting it, or worse, they're like below 1%, they're well below that goal, that tells you they do not care about the goal. If they cared about the goal, they would do whatever it took to sit there and enable that goal to be met. And I don't waver on that way of thinking. If there's a goal and you care about hitting it, you will do it. Us salespeople, when we have a goal that achieving it gets us a trip to Hawaii, we do whatever it takes to get the goal done and go forward. And so that's why I say these agencies that don't hit their goal, they don't care. But if you look over at DHS as an example, they exceed their goals. HHS, huge small business friendly department, right? If you look in there, they're always exceeding their goals. Well, go there if you're a small business because you're reaching an agency that values the contribution you could make, that small businesses can make to their agency's mission, right? So go where they're already hitting their goals and you will find success. That's a criteria I use when I'm choosing my agency. It doesn't stop me from eventually coming back to these people who are not hitting their goals. I just want your thinking on goals as a criteria to go where people are hitting their goals. Okay, so let me tell you the last thing here is just a reminder is pick one agency and get started. You can always reevaluate this in 6 months and 12 months. Go, did I pick the right agency? One of my recommendations is to pick the largest agency you can think of, and then in there find a command or a subordinate office that fits. An example is if you go to Department of Homeland Security, don't stay there. Go down to like FEMA or the Coast Guard, right? Now you're going to a sub-agency within the Department of Homeland Security. So go down there and tighten up. I'd love it if you throw in the comments if you know what your primary agency is, not two agencies or more, But if you know, hey, you know what? I want to go after this agency. I want to start building my knowledge and my relationships within that agency. Throw it in the comment. Let me know if that fits in. And that goes with a call to action I wanted to give you. If you don't know which agency is your primary agency, then pick a single agency and start doing the work to grow your business within that agency. Again, like I said, in the Navy, look into the Navy, look into NAVC, or Health and Human Services, HHS, look into CDC, for example, and begin to build your knowledge and your revenue from that business. Give me a thumbs up if you found this is helpful. Josh, that's important for me to hear. Department of Energy. I know a lot of people there, so maybe I can chat. Rafa, you and I have talked about DOE as well. That's funny, two people on who I would love to look at DOE and maybe see if there's ways to start doing the connections. I'm all healthy again, by the way, so I'm full of energy and ready to start moving forward. So that's what we got covered today. I'm all wrapped up. I hope you have a good weekend. I am definitely here on Monday. I'll do a LinkedIn Live. Whether you're here or not is up to you, but the replay will be available. I like doing these and I like putting this content out because I know it would have helped me as a small business owner and as a business developer and a capture lead. And I know that it will help you. So I'm going to keep creating the content. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. Part of that process is enjoying your weekend. I'll see you next time.